It's a classic design, but does it sound as good as it looks? Hey there, this episode of Some Gadget Guy is brought to you by viewers like you. All of the incredible people sharing content across social media and the generosity of my patrons at patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. More info on those awesome nerds later in the video. Alright, the folks at Beyerdynamic sent these my way to test drive, share some thoughts. The Aventho 100 wireless on-ear headphones. And on-ears are kind of interesting. Often they can be billed as a compromised headphone because of the smaller sizes. Because of that, I don't think they always get the attention they deserve. They're one tool in our audio arsenal that might be a better fit for what you need to do, but I'll ramble about that later in the video. Beyerdynamic is nailing material and finish here. They're going for a classic radio operator look, and the 100 are spot on. Clean, simple lines, very practical build. It's a folding frame, so they're easy to chuck into a backpack or a larger purse, and they feel rugged enough to handle that kind of lifestyle abuse. Now, I don't weight design too heavily in my reviews. I can't see what I look like when I'm wearing headphones, but I can have a little appreciation for an old school vibe. What I care about more, even though the ear cups fold and swivel, and there are hinges and moving parts, there's practically no creakiness or frame noise while wearing these and moving your jaw around. Got an old school look, but they are decently teched out. And we've got Bluetooth 5.4 leaning on aptX flavors for high-res audio playback. iPhone owners, yet again, left out. I have to keep reiterating that Apple won't support any high-res audio codecs. AAC is gonna be fine, but Apple is keeping you from the best these headphones can support. Up to 40 hours of playback with ANC on, and fast charging from a low battery should deliver about 15 hours of playback in around 15 minutes. Those estimates vibed pretty close to what I got in my first listen. I honestly stopped paying attention when I've got multiple days of charge before I've gotta plug them in and top them off again. And one of the reasons why the battery life estimates aren't so critical to me, every connection type is supported. Of course, Bluetooth, good, easy wireless connection with dual device support and fast pairing. The 100 also have a 3.5mm cable, so you can go with an analog connection if you want to plug them into another DAC. The 100s can be used while charging, which is always nice to see. You don't have to wait for the battery to top off. You can plug them in while going wireless, or you can use them straight over a cable as a USB audio device. This makes them perfectly flexible. I compare them wirelessly to a phone and tablet, but then when I'm working at a laptop, I'll go over a USB cable, which is also charging them. And then at my desktop, I can plug them into a DAC or my audio interface. I can always use the best possible connection for every device I use them with. Now, I mentioned briefly, on-ear cans are sometimes disregarded as lesser than solutions compared to over-ear cans. I think that can be a little simplistic, and sometimes it ignores the benefits of smaller ear cup designs and the need some people might have for comfort. We're always trying to balance comfort, performance, and portability. And an on-ear headphone isn't one thing. They might just rest lightly on the ear, making them more comfortable, but then lacking some of the isolation you would want in noisier surroundings. Or they could be like my mixing DJ headphones, the Sennheiser HD25. That kind of on-ear clamps to the side of your head, pressing the outer ear against your skull, and that delivers excellent isolation, but they aren't gonna be comfortable for longer listening sessions. The headband on the 100 kind of splits the difference. I found them to be comfortable and with a decent enough clamp to help passively block sound. It's one of the trickiest aspects of on-ear headphones. They might be the perfect fit for you and your needs, but trying out a pair isn't always easy to do. The other compromise often cited, on-ears are smaller, so you have to use smaller drivers, but here Beyerdynamic is doing something kind of fun. The Aventho are using either the same or a very similar take on the Stellar 45 driver found in their bigger studio cans like my 770 Pro X. It is not the same kind of experience, but the hardware gives this on-ear a bump in what it can pump out. Some notable differences: the 100's frequency response is limited compared to the 770 Pro X, and the ear pads around the smaller case are thicker and spongier. There are a bunch of videos and articles on this topic, but I might need to do my own on how ear pads can significantly change the tone of a headphone. So just because this has a Stellar 45, it's not going to perform like this headphone here, but it is a fun choice for a smaller headphone, which, I mean, that should lead us into sound quality. These are really smooth. We got thick, cushy ear pads. They really seem to be smoothing the edges on the audio you'll experience. Literally, the ear pads compress in a way where they overlap the outer edge of the driver. I feel there's a fine line in criticism using words like smooth, or for some folks, using words like dull. So it's not entirely fair that I immediately rushed to compare these against the 770s. The Aventho are going for something more comfortable than a recording or monitoring solution. So I don't think they land as articulated as these here, but I don't think that was the point. For folks watching this video right here, you always got to temper my reviews by the fact that I'm a mids junkie, and the EQ on these would probably be grating or fatiguing to a lot of folks, but this driver does have some room to tweak what you want out of it. I wish Beyerdynamic was giving us a 10-band EQ to adjust, but even in the app, it wasn't difficult nudging up a bit more of what I wanted to hear. I think the preset EQs on most headphones are too deliberate. Like, the bass mode isn't really much nuanced as an adjust, you just dump some rumble on, and that included bass mode here sounded really dull to me. There is room though. Yeah, I can catch those fun little details that I like to listen for, like a rhythm guitar that can often get lost, or the upright bass mixed farther away in some jazz, but when a sultry saxophone needs your attention, it's placed well in space in front of you. None of our closed-back wireless headphones are going to deliver a spacious or airy sound, but free of fake spatial processing, this is a nice balance of isolation and soundstage. Again, I'm trying to weigh these experiences against other on-ear, smaller driver housing headphones that I've listened to. I think Beyerdynamic is being a bit conservative with this presentation. You can't just turn these into skull rumblers. The bass is present, and we can EQ a darker tone, but they're not going to go super thumpy. Likewise, in the mids and highs, this wasn't common, but on 2 of my testing playlist tracks, I would hear layered audio or chorusing that would get a bit smeary if the music was really brick-walled in terms of pop loudness. My torture test for this is still WTF by OK Go. The Aventho stopped short of shrill on some of those layered effects, but there's so much happening in this track, it felt like they just kind of gave up. I don't know, man, it's loud. You want loud? Here's loud. I'm trying to wrap this point up, but I'm having fun with all the different ways Beyerdynamic is choosing to use this driver, and it really lights it up for me how moving an audio unit to different cases and pads and shells can have such a huge impact on the sound you hear. I might be giving them too much credit, but I like the idea of an on-the-go headphone that's built to be comfy, even down to the tuning. For some people like me, you might want to really crank up a bit more detail, edge, and articulation, but I think for a lot of folks, the Aventho are going to appeal with a very chill vibe. On the go, you'd also want to block noise and distractions around you. Passively, I mentioned the headband, and it's firm, but not clampy on my skull. I have a pretty big head, and I'm at the end of each arm. If you also have a bigger head, getting the drivers on your ears properly, they might not reach. But fully extended, there's no creak, and I can move around a bit without them sliding around. The cups block noise really well on their own. There's light compression to my ear, and it's effective at blocking a lot. I really don't have a good sense of how loud I'm talking now. Then the ANC adds to the effect, slicing out more noise, and it adds a subtle air. It's not a hiss, it's not a whine, but I almost wonder if this is intentional now to prevent that stuffy ear or hyper isolated feeling. Maybe it gives a listener some sense of being in a space and not in a void. This ANC is solid and really good at general lifestyle distractions. I think they'd be awesome to wear around a cafe or an office, the way they handle general noise and computer fans right in front of me. Even turning up some noise on my speakers, I think they do well on public transit or on an airplane, though I think circumaural headphones would probably best them in some of the louder situations we might find ourselves in. With this kind of ear cup, I'm not sure how sweaty you'd want to get them. That honestly might make more of a difference in use than how good the ANC might be. And with these mics cranking, the pass-through mode is nice and natural. It's good directional audio. It doesn't sound like anything is hyped up or peaky. It doesn't sound like a recording. Just a very simple, clean transmission. I think that's very well done there. And lastly, I have not done a great job of detailing this in other reviews. The Aventho are not only nicely repairable, but Beyerdynamic has a PDF on the product page detailing the disassembly. I love seeing that. I want to see more of that. A really good pair of headphones should last a long time. I have old school Pro cans that are now old enough to legally buy alcohol. And the massive failing of consumer gear, wireless gear, is the battery. If we can get better at supplying replacement parts like ear pads, drivers, and batteries, there's no reason we couldn't keep this hardware running for a lot longer. Even balancing some of the compromises inherent in this design, I just like supporting that and supporting companies that make this process easier, both in the design of the product, but also in the literature shared with their customers. It's just right there on the website, and that's how it should be. So I am charmed by these little cans. We got form and function, a classic throwback look, a nice smooth sound, solid noise reduction, and a super portable shell if your head is the right size. Beyerdynamic has been on a roll lately with some interesting refreshes of their studio gear, but their consumer options have improved massively from where they were several years ago. It's difficult to describe who might be the best fit for these if you haven't tried on-ear headphones before. But it's exactly the kind of choice I love to see in a company's lineup, acknowledging that one size does not fit all, and some folks will want other options. This might be the right vibe for you. The Aventho 100 is a fun option. So I will, of course, leave some links down below this video where you can find more information on the Beyerdynamic Aventho 100. Maybe shop these bad boys online. As always, thanks so much for watching, sharing these videos, subscribing to the channel, and smashing bell icons. That helps with algorithms too. I love digging into this kind of stuff. Audio has always been my first passion, my first love, my first joy, and the folks who get to see the results of my testing and reviewing first are my incredible patrons, all of the people over on patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. This list of names scrolling by on your screen right now, a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart, as these are the folks that are helping to keep the lights on here in the Gadget Lab. They get all my videos in 4K, production diaries, behind the scenes, the private Discord. Some of them get early access to these videos and reviews. They're basically the coolest tech pals in the universe. So I hope you'll check them out. I hope you'll consider joining the community at patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. Now, you know where you can find me around the rest of the internet, at SomeGadgetGuy, basically everywhere. But these days, trying to spend a bit more time on the Mastodons and a lot less so on the Facebooks, Threads, Instagrams, and none at all on that dumpster fire site. And I will catch you all on the next review.